The Week 12 preview is here. A lot of fun stuff to dig into today. We're going to kick it off with 2 games of the week. These games of the week presented by BetMGM. First one, the Colts at the Chiefs. The Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites in this one. Dave, why is this one of our 2 games of the week?
One of the powers in the AFC is going up against a team hanging on to its playoff life. And that's the Chiefs. The Chiefs are not the power. The Chiefs are the team that desperately needs to win to stay apace in the wild card race, which is, if nothing else, it's just fun to see the Chiefs in this situation where if they were to lose this game, it would be the latest in an NFL season they've been below 500 since 2012, which is when they went 2-14 and led to them hiring Andy Reid. Like, it's been a nice decade plus for the Kansas City Chiefs. So
that's a good point, because I think that so often we just tie the Patrick Mahomes era into like when the Chiefs started being a good team, and when in reality they were a playoff team every single year with Alex Smith.
Immediately when they hired Andy Reid and got Alex Smith, they were a playoff team.
They were a team that was like, we want to aspire to more than this. And typically you kind of wave that off like, well, you're being irrational. And then they drafted Patrick Mahomes, and it was like, oh, you are a lot more than just making the playoffs every year. So it's strange to see them here. And then obviously, what a chance for the Indianapolis Colts coming off of their bye. It hasn't been a bad 2 weeks, but they just haven't. They've dealt with the problems that you deal with in the NFL. And what better way to assert yourselves than to beat the biggest bully on the block?
Let's bring it all the way around. The first playoff game of the Andy Reid era.
That's right.
Was the Chiefs-Colts game where Jamal Charles got hurt in that game, didn't he? He got a concussion and then he'd come out of the game, and it was like early in the period when you had to leave the game because of the concussion. And so it was a very memorable playoff game. It was 45-44 was the final score of that game.
That's so weird to think about. Patrick Mahomes is 0-2 against the Colts in the regular season too. So
he played that disgusting game against the Colts. Remember the Chiefs offense really struggled last time they played the Colts. It's irrelevant now, but like there are more
very different Colts
there are more relevant Colts Chiefs moments that I anticipated before having this conversation.
I think we've brought this up before on the show. Yeah, I brought it up with the Packers and the Giants last week, where every team has like a random team where it's just like, oh, we got to play these guys. And like outsiders probably don't think about it. But yeah, there's some angst here with the Chiefs and the Colts.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, guys. We can't bring up that playoff game without saying that it was 38-10.
That's right.
And the Colts came back and won.
It was an incredible comeback. Yes.
Andrew Luck is a superhero.
Yeah, there are a lot of layers to that one.
Mahomes did beat the Colts in the playoffs the first time they won the Super Bowl, for whatever that's worth. So
a little more historical context here. The Chiefs have never lost 3 games in a row since Patrick Mahomes became their quarterback. And when you actually think about it, like obviously that makes sense. Like good teams don't tend to lose 3 games in a row. But if you want to put like a fine point on how strange of a moment this feels like for the Kansas City Chiefs, I think that crystallizes it pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, think about, just like you don't expect teams that have like those quarterbacks to lose 3 games in a row. It seems almost impossible. And I know a lot of it this year is like, they're not getting blown out in these games. They're literally losing by like 2 points, 3 points, 4 points in all of these games. But at a certain point, they stack up to a point where like your playoff chances are pretty dire.
I alluded to this on the table show that we did in the middle of the week. The Chiefs in the Patrick Mahomes era heading into this season were 56-21 in one-score games, 73%. They famously won 11 or 12 of them last year. They're 0-5 right now. They're 0-5 in games decided by a touchdown or less, which for a while there, it felt like they were incapable of doing that. But that has been the difference, in my opinion, for this team.
The larger like storyline consideration with me for the Colts, I think kind of resides mostly on when they have the ball. So let's start on that side of this game. We did the table conversation yesterday, and we eliminated the Colts from the table. They were a team that we didn't even really talk that much about as part of this discussion. We did that before I had rewatched the Colts-Falcons game and before I started doing the prep for this conversation on this show. I'm going to be honest with both of you guys. I'm a little bit uneasy about having left the Colts off the table. And the point of tension here between you and I is that you just do not believe in the quarterback. And I think I might believe enough in all of the other aspects of the offense, plus some of the things with the defense that we'll talk about in a second, that this team like does have a gear to it that might be dangerous down the stretch. The game they played the last 2 weeks, obviously they turned the ball over a shitload against the Steelers, and then the game they had last week against the Falcons 2 weeks ago, the final score, I mean, they have a couple turnovers in the red zone. They have 2 fourth down failures in opponent territory in the red zone. They move the ball consistently down to down again. And so I was just thinking about like kind of the larger scale stats associated with this Colts offense and what they felt like this year. And I was just looking some stuff up. This season, even including the last 2 weeks, the Colts have a first down. They have created a first down on 35.2% of their plays. There is a bigger gap between them and the Chiefs at 2. The Chiefs are still number 2, by the way.
Pretty good
Then
team.
the Chiefs and the Ravens at number 11. The only 2 teams that have broken the 35% barrier over an entire season since 2000 are the 2000 Rams, speaking of the greatest show on turf, Rams, and the 2011 Saints. That's it. Like, that is how efficient the Colts offense has been. And they were pretty efficient over the last 2 weeks. And so this idea that Daniel Jones is going to turn back into a pumpkin, this is all going to come off the rails, I kind of understand how we arrive at that point. But as I think more about it and I watch what this offense continues to look like down to down, I don't know, man. I think they're still pretty f***ing good.
I think they're going to continue to be efficient. They still run the ball incredibly well. I like the way that they RPO teams. They have enough good pass catchers, but like for the first 2 months of the season, the bad plays that he had been committing for the first 6-7 years of his career just weren't happening. His pressure to sack rate was incredibly low. Like, he was incredibly good under pressure in a way that is not sustainable for anybody that's not Josh Allen.
This is a weird thing, and I'm curious how you think about this. When I watch him right now, and there are multiple throws like this against the Falcons, when there is pressure directly in his face and he does not have to move, he's been incredible this year. Like, his ability to deliver throws as someone is in his lap, he continues to do it. He had multiple plays like that against the Falcons. If he has to move off his spot even a tiny bit, that's where it starts getting dicey. And I think the line between those two things and how drastic the difference is on either side of the line is kind of wild to watch right now.
I think the late Vikings Kirk Cousins was a lot like this.
Yes,
where
that's
if
a
he
good
was
comparison.
standing on his spot, and he could even Matthew Stafford right now is like
We've
this.
talked about Tannehill and how there's like a Tannehill kind of like essence to this.
And I just think that like that style of quarterbacking, even when it looks good, it looks really good. It also invites a certain amount of volatility. And I think when you're generally the quality of quarterback that Daniel Jones has been for 6-7 years of his career, I'm just a little bit worried we're going to get more of the dips than we got for the first 2 months of the season. It probably won't look as bad as like the Steelers game. The Steelers game was probably an outlier on the other end. But something like the Falcons game where you get some more of those moments.
He put the ball on the ground
probably
multiple times in that game. I mean, again,
threw a pretty ugly. Like, it was end of half, so the pick wasn't that bad. But like, the way that he threw it was like pretty gross to me.
Yeah, the decision to throw that ball based on like the coverage in that moment is indefensible. But to me, the ball security stuff and what happens later in downs as he's trying to create a little bit, I think those are the things that become most worrisome to me. I just don't know. We've talked about this yesterday. Where between early season Daniel Jones and last 2 weeks Daniel Jones from a ball security and decision-making standpoint I land. Because I think that the rest of the offense is so good, so well devised, that if he's even in the middle between those 2 points, I still think I have a lot of faith in this. I guess the question now becomes, what does it look like this week against the Chiefs?
That's what I was going to say. I think it's a vastly different thing between winning multiple playoff games. And that was the conversation that we had in the middle of the week. And that's why I felt comfortable leaving them off the table. But here in this game, it's very funny timing, because I'm with you. After we kind of dismissively just flipped the Colts off the table, I've been prepping for this. I went home, I was watching Colts games, and I was like, yeah, I like this matchup for the Colts a lot, to be honest with you, on both sides of the ball. And like, this Colts offense, I think, is well suited to give the Chiefs problems between what they like to do with Daniel Jones and, oh, by the way, they're like the most devastating running game in the NFL.
But you're less worried about that.
The Chiefs' first down run game is run defense is actually pretty
There
good.
are 4 of them, though.
Yeah, I know, but
you get 4 shots at it.
But if you start to get Daniel Jones behind the sticks a little bit, I think that's how you invite some of the volatility that like the Steelers defended the run well in that game, and I think that's how you started to invite some of that volatility in a guy like Daniel Jones.
They have a 22% conversion rate on 3rd and 7 plus this year. The Colts do. That is 20th in the NFL.
They're not a good like pure drop back like that team. Like even though the passing game is super efficient, it's a lot of play action. It's a lot of RPO. Some of their screen stuff is good. Like it's a lot of the other easy buttons that they've because of the run game, have been able to get into it for a lot of the situations that they want. But like, they are not, to me, a pure 3rd and 7, let's go win type of game.
But you know who has the worst success rate in the league against play action this year?
The Chiefs.
Kansas City.
Yeah.
So I get it. And there clearly are ways that you can take Daniel Jones out of this rhythm and make him look more like what we remember. I am curious if the Chiefs are equipped to be one of those teams this year.
I just don't. My confidence right now in the back seven for the Chiefs and even the defense overall, I just don't feel very good about this group. And it's not some disaster. Like, if you look at like the season long numbers, this is not even a below average defense. It's a slightly above average defense. But when I go back and I watch that game against the Broncos, and this has just been kind of a consistent theme for me this year, if you had to kind of pick out what is the defining quality of the 2025 Kansas City Chiefs defense, what do they do well? What would the answer be for you?
They defend the run well on first down. And that's
that
about
is
it.
Such a narrow scope.
and it's the biggest thing to me is, and we talked about this over the last couple of years, the 4-man pass rush still is not a very good group, right? Like, I think Karlaftis actually had a nice week last week, and Karlaftis is a solid player.
He's having a good season. He's just like, in an ideal world, you want him to be your number 2.
And Chris Jones, and I think your number 2 edge rusher, right?
Right.
And then Chris Jones is obviously, he still has those moments where he's Chris Jones, but I don't think down to down he's quite the force that he has been at other times in his career. And there have been a lot of stretches for the Chiefs defense where even if the 4-man pass rush didn't scare you very much, their ability to manufacture pressure and consistently get after teams that way could kind of make up for it. And when you watch the Chiefs defense right now, they just don't have that sort of menacing feeling when they're blitzing. And that's the reason that I'm like, where does the defining quality of this thing? Because it doesn't feel like a Steve Spagnuolo defense right now. And the numbers back up that eye test. Since 2021, so the last 5 years, before this season, the Chiefs had not allowed better than a 42% success rate in any single season when blitzing. Just for context, right now, that like 41.9% would be the 8th best mark in the league. So they've had essentially like a top 8 success rate when blitzing each of the last 5 years. This year, it's 49%. They've allowed a 49% success rate when blitzing. They have the 3rd worst pressure rate in the league when bringing 5 or more. The only teams that are worse are the Saints and the Raiders. It just doesn't feel like a Steve Spagnuolo defense right now. And that's why I'm kind of like with Dave, where like this Colts offense is really good and the Chiefs defense doesn't scare me right now.
I thought the Broncos game is a great illustration of this. The very first play against Denver, Chamari Connor sacked Bo Nix. They sent him off left tackle, and it was like, Spags, there he is.
Yeah, it's back.
Big game Spags. And then they did it, I think they did it 9 more times and did nothing with it. Like they blitzed him 3 more times on the opening drive. He was great against all of those. He finished the day 6 of 8 for 113 yards with an EPA per drop back of 0.8 against the blitz. So like from the first snap on, after the first snap of the game, it wasn't doing anything. And I went and looked at this. They are, and this is courtesy of Next Gen Stats, they're generating unblocked pressures. So, and like, isn't that what you think of when you think of Spags? Is like, why is that linebacker just running free through the gap? Like, whose man is that? That's what they're so famous for. And they're getting those unblocked pressures at a rate of just 6.2%. And for context, if that doesn't feel like it means anything to you, the teams that have been going to the Super Bowl here the last 2 or 3 years have been generating those between 9 and 10%. If you game that out over the course of a season, that's like upward of a dozen more of these unblocked sorts of pressures. And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, now go back to the part where they've lost 5 one-score games. You think
it's 1 play a game? Yeah.
You think an unblocked pressure a game couldn't be like a big difference in this? And so it might sound small, but I think those are the sorts of margins you're working with for a team like this.
Let's get to the other side of the ball, where I actually do think that the way that the Chiefs offense is currently playing and the way the Colts offense played last week specifically makes this kind of a scary matchup for the Chiefs as things are currently going. The Chiefs this year have been a bottom 10 team in success rate against man coverage. And last week against the Falcons, the Colts turned up the man coverage in a very real way. They played 45% man against the Falcons last week per Next Gen. That is their single highest mark in a game this season. They also had their second highest blitz rate in a game this season. And why I actually think that's notable isn't just that they were good at it for one game. When I watch the Colts defense right now, even without Charvarius Ward, I think they look more comfortable playing man coverage than they do playing zone coverage. Like a lot of the cover 2 reps that they had early in that game against the Falcons, guys are getting lost. They're trying to do some funky stuff with like simulateds and drop 8s. And I actually like this defense better when they're kind of just playing man and being aggressive. And that has bared out over the course of the season. Among teams with 100 dropbacks against man this year, only the Broncos and Lions have allowed a lower success rate than the Indianapolis Colts. And they also have a 10.4% sack rate when playing man coverage, which when you get to double digits, that's pretty damn good. And when you watch the Chiefs right now, they are just not a team that has a lot of answers against man coverage. And so maybe it's just the glimpse I got the last time the Colts played, but I'm curious how that element of this matchup goes on Sunday.
I do worry about them a little bit in terms of what is their capacity to beat man coverage, because they don't have anyone who does it very well. Like
you really feel that.
Like Xavier Worthy does nothing for you past 8 yards. Like Rashee Rice is really not that kind of player. Like he just doesn't separate well enough.
What do you think Rashee Rice's yards per route run are against man coverage this year?
It can't be
if
very
you had to
good.
guess.
I don't want to, because
like
the fact that you're asking me makes me think it's going to be gross.
0.8.
That's gross.
0.8 yards per route run against man coverage. Against zone this year, it's 3.2. As a team, the Chiefs are averaging 2.2 yards per route run against zone and 1.2 yards per route run against man. They just don't have anybody to give them answers in those moments. And in a post-Tyreek world, when teams are playing more man against the Chiefs, that was Travis Kelce. Like when you look back on it a couple years ago, in 2022, he had 29 receiving first downs against man coverage, and he was targeted on 30% of the Chiefs' man coverage dropbacks. This year, he's been targeted, Travis Kelce, on 15.5% of their man coverage targets or man coverage dropbacks, and he has 8 receiving first downs against man. Through 11 weeks, that's one less than Jalen Nailor.
That's tough. And so I do worry about this aspect of the matchup. I think for me, though, when I think about like what is going to give the Chiefs offense issues, it's can you get pressure off the edge? I like Lea Tulatu, but I don't think the Colts defense is good enough really to give me the kind of problems that I think that they're going to have.
There's no one else you're worried about either.
There's no one else I'm really worried about there.
Kuipe had some nice moments against the Falcons.
He's okay. Exactly. He's not enough to where I'm going to be like, oh, it's not like they're playing the Texans or something like that, where I'm really going to have an issue here.
I mean, he's not an edge player anyway, but like losing DeForest Buckner for the foreseeable future hurts.
And so that's my other point too, is like, I think the Chiefs can probably run the ball pretty decently in this game, because I don't think the Colts front is that good.
I agree with you. Will they try to do that?
Will they? I don't know. But
I gotta give you credit, because like in the moment on Sunday night, you were like, why didn't they take more of this? And Derrik and I weren't all the way with you. And it has been the prevalent topic in the Chiefs community right now is like, are they willing to run the football into the very favorable looks that teams are willing to give them?
We do this all the time.
Who do you put on the field if you want to be an under center rushing team?
In terms of what?
Like what is your personnel? Like you can't have Xavier Worthy on the field. You can't have Hollywood on the field.
I do think that there are some personnel tweaks away from being able to be this sort of team, like as an identity. I still think you need to sprinkle it in more than you're doing it right now. Because if they want to be in 12 personnel and you have to have Kelce out there, Noah Gray isn't that sort of guy. Like they don't have the physicality at tight end or at receiver to really lean into this. And so I do think this is more of an offseason consideration, but I do think they have to do that. Like I said this to you yesterday. Jawan Jennings is a free agent this year. Oof. I would love to see a player like Jawan Jennings be on the Chiefs.
That would be
just
really
to give
fun.
them like a big-bodied option in some of these man coverage situations, one more receiver who could potentially block, because that's the transition that needs to happen. We do this all the time with these star-level quarterbacks where we're like, oh, well, he doesn't really like to play that way, and like, you don't want to put him in that box because that's not really what you do with those sorts of players. Go look at what Matthew Stafford and Dak Prescott are doing this year in offenses that have leaned more into being like under center, complementary play action sorts of offenses. It doesn't eliminate the option just because your quarterback is good. Like it makes the quarterback's life easier. And so I just don't understand why teams refuse to kind of pull that lever, even if their quarterbacks are not necessarily attuned to playing that way, because almost invariably it's going to put you in easier positions.
Yeah, and like we know Patrick Mahomes can do it. They've had stretches where they've been a little bit more of like a big team, get under center a little bit more, but like they've over the last couple of years have like drifted again further back away from that, which has been incredibly frustrating. And I think part of the reason their run game looks the way it does, being so gun heavy, is I think a lot of their pass game only kind of works because they're an RPO team. And so if you can attach that to your run game, it's just like they are like an off-season away from fixing this. And so I do worry about that a little bit, but
it's still a good
I still
offense.
think they'll be okay.
They
That's the other
they
thing.
just
like,
run into more walls than
Objective-
necessary.
Yes.
Objectively so, it is a good
Yes.
offense.
I think that there are just more dead ends, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there are some teams that, like, let's take this metaphor another step forward. If they run into a wall, like they just have like a jackhammer that can push through the wall, like the Bills are like this now, right?
Mhm.
And the Chiefs just don't have that.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to have these games, the Bills game being a really good example of this, of where they're doing a specific sort of thing to you, you can't pivot off of that. I think that's where the offense just runs into more dead ends and becomes more frustrating than it needs to be, given the overall quality of it.
Mhm.
All right, let's get to our next one here. The Bucks at the Rams. Dave, why? Bucks at the Rams. The Rams are 6.5-point favorites in this game, which not necessarily a surprise, considering I think the divergent paths these teams have taken since like the first month of the season. I think that also speaks to why this feels like a game of the week.
I think it's a good. I mean, it's a great time to check in on the Bucks, right? Because I mean, Baker Mayfield was on that heater in the first month of the season. Early MVP consideration. The Bucks looking like maybe a team that could achieve that extra gear that we wanted to see. And the Rams have just been everything that we could have hoped and dreamed. It's the best team in the league right now, hosting a team that was trying to get there and is falling short recently. I will point this out for my Bucks people. We joked about it in the middle of the week, and it's just kind of staggering. The Bucks' last 6 opponents are a combined 44-18. And when they're done playing this game over the last 9 weeks, starting with the Seahawks and going until now, they will have currently played 7 teams that are top 12 in overall DVOA. So I'm not convinced that the Bucks are like mid. I just think the Bucks have played a boatload of really good teams, and for various reasons, they haven't achieved that extra level that we wanted them to see.
But I think that's the right way to look at it.
Yeah.
Because I understand that, and I think that's the reason that maybe we should consider the Bucks a better team than the Panthers and why they should still be the favorite in the division, because they've had a really tough schedule. But I think the hope was early in the season that the Bucks would be one of those teams rather than rather than someone who's losing to a bunch of those teams, and that has not happened for a variety of reasons.
And it's very similar to they did this on Monday night against Detroit earlier in the year, where it was like, okay, go see, let's see what it looks like against the big boys,
and they got punked.
They got punked, and so I don't need them to win. I would like for them to not get punked if I am supposed to continue believing in them as something more than the 4 seed in the NFC.
How much faith do you have in that?
Yeah, what is your confidence rating? Mine is pretty low. I think they get punked in this game.
Can you ask me when the inactives come out on Sunday morning and I know if Bucky Irving, Chris Godwin, and Ben Bredesen are going to play? Because if those 3 guys play, I'm a little more optimistic that this could be good. If that continues, then I'm kind of thinking this is a 14-point Rams win.
So let's talk about that, because I think that the Bucks offense right now, when you look at the season-long stats, it's kind of jarring to like see it laid out in front of you. The Bucks right now, per True Media, are 27th in offensive success rate. 27th.
I didn't think it was that bad.
This isn't just like
Even when they were good, they were uneven.
Yes.
It's just
A lot
like
of
Baker
explosives.
found Emeka Egbuka down the field 4 times in a row.
Last year they were second.
Yeah.
They finished just behind the Lions last year. And so this is a Bucks offense that comparatively is really struggling. And we haven't dove into that conversation. I kind of think we were kind of waiting for it in a moment like this, where they were a game of the week and we kind of sit with it a little bit. So when you're watching this Bucks offense, the 27th ranked Bucks offense by success rate, what do you think is most plaguing this team in this moment?
I think the answer is incredibly simple. I think the players just aren't good enough right now because they've all been injured. Like, they're missing Mike Evans, who has been as steady a force as you've ever had in like every part of the field. Really, he's their best downfield threat. He's obviously incredible in the red zone. Not having Godwin, I think, has hurt. And then Emeka Egbuka was super exciting early in the year, but he is not the caliber of rookie that is like a carry the passing offense kind of guy. So I think you add all of that on top of...
There's a lot of Tez Johnson.
There's a lot of Tez Johnson.
Brother.
Yeah.
Like, way too many Tez.
He is like a go-to piece of this. And I'm not trying to shit on him, but he's a rookie day 3 pick.
Yes.
Like, It's a tough place to be.
Yeah, you can't be running your passing offense through Tez Johnson. Even it's like a nice find, but nice find should not be like
he has had some legitimately good moments this year.
He should be what Jalen McMillan was last year.
Yes.
And unfortunately, he has been put into a place where he has to be Chris Godwin from last year.
Another guy that's hurt for the Bucs, by the way, Jalen McMillan.
And it's deeply unfair. And then this is an offense that's never really asked a lot of their tight end. Like, I like Hayden, he's fine, but they've never really gone to him that way. Bucky Irving is their best pass catching back, and he's missed most of the year. And then the offensive line has never really got its shot to gel because it's always like Cody Mauch has missed most of the year. Bredesen has missed some time. Gadecki was out for a stretch.
Gadecki got back last week, and then Bredesen was instantly out. Right?
Yeah, it's like they've just never had. Whereas last year they were like mostly had their guys and were able to gel and just maul people. And so I think because of all that instability, you add that on top of the fact that, like, I don't mean this as like some sweeping, like, we have to make some proclamation about Baker Mayfield or whatever, but like, he's just a quarterback. When you invite volatility, some bad stuff is going to happen. And that's true of like all but like the top 6 quarterbacks in the league. And so I think they've just gotten to a point where they just don't have as much of a we can go to this every time sort of thing because they've just not had stability at offensive line or pass catching.
The screen game is nowhere near as fun for this team as it was last year. I mean, that was such a calling card of what Liam Cohen did there last year, and it just hasn't been part of their game. I believe running backs only. But again, Bucky Irving was so fun with that last year. Their running back screens have gained 38 yards this year across the season.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They probably had like 5 screens that went for 38 yards by themselves last year.
So when you're looking at just let's call them layup plays and layup value within an offense, something that just kind of quietly happens, I would say that screens and the running game, I would bucket those things together. So last year, over the course of the season, the Bucs offense under Liam Cohen generated about 40 total EPA over the course of the season when you combine screens, which they had 21 of over the course of the year, and the running game. They had a running game that was top 4 in success rate last year, and they were the best screen team in the NFL. So it's 40 over the course of the season. This year so far, that number is 3, 11 weeks into the year. And so that value, just comparatively, you're getting a 10th of it combined compared to what you got over the course of last season. You combine that with the fact that in the passing game specifically, I think where the biggest struggles have come to be is when they are playing against man coverage. So, and that's, I think, where the talent level really starts to show up. Last year, they finished 3rd in the NFL, the Bucs rate did, in success rate versus man per next gen, behind only the Lions and the Ravens. They were 49%. They are at 35% this year. They have the 5th worst EPA per dropback in the NFL against man. The teams directly below them are the Browns, Giants, and Titans. And I think Mike Evans is a good chunk of that, right? So Mike Evans last year, he finished 3rd in the NFL in first downs per route run versus man behind A.J. Brown and Puka. And he was targeted on 34% of the team's dropbacks when opponents played man coverage, which is a top 10 rate in the league. And so some of this is probably going to a new offensive coordinator, but I'm trying to parse how much of this is a Josh Grizzard problem and how much of this is a talent problem. And I don't know exactly where I land with that.
It always feels like a cop-out to just say, well, they're hurt, because everybody in the NFL is hurt in late November. But I do think this would look drastically different. I mean, just as an example, weeks 1 through 6, Baker was 10 of 30 for 418 yards when he threw 20 yards down the field or more. And since Mike got hurt in week 7, from week 7 until now, he's only even attempted 9. And only 1 of those has been completed.
Yeah, you feel that. Yeah, that volatility that we're talking about, like the volatility was going in their favor, and now the volatility barely exists in a good way.
And now if you're going to be a team that can't push the ball as well down the field, you don't really have a good quick game, because Baker's never really been like a quick game guy. He's a drop back, rip it and rip it quarterback, 15-yard outs, all that stuff. And so now they don't have a quick game to keep them efficient. And the run game has been fine at times, but again, it's been hard for it to gel because they've just had guys in and out of the lineup.
They're dead average in success rate.
Right.
Dead average with the offensive line injuries, which is like, that's fine.
It's fine.
It's just not objectively good.
Yeah, it would be fine if all the other stuff was still there.
Yeah.
But now all the other stuff isn't still there, and you don't have that. And then, again, Bucky Irving is their most explosive back. I mean, Sean Tucker has done some of that as well, but Bucky Irving is like, they want him in the lineup to get some explosives.
And they're about to play against a very good defense. A defense that picked off Sam Darnold and the team that was number 1 in passing DVOA 4 times last week. I will say, the Quentin Lake news this week, heartbreaking.
I
heartbreaking.
poured one out for you specifically when
he
I
has
saw
been
that.
awesome this year. And so he has a dislocated elbow. He is now on IR. He had surgery. I'm really hoping that he can get back before the end of the season. Those dislocated elbows, they don't have as long of a timeline as you think they would. And so, but that's a tough one. This team, I think, is equipped to deal with that. They have some depth and some flexibility in the secondary, but he's been the most important back seven piece.
Yes, he's their best player outside of the front
all year. And so losing him, I do think matters. Whether it matters that much right now against this version of the Bucs, I'm not sure. The other side of the ball in this game is actually kind of the side I'm most interested in, just because structurally, I think this is really fun. The Bucs and the Rams have actually played against each other fewer times than you might think in like the Stafford Todd Bowles era, because that one division game just like has so much prominence in my mind.
Epic game.
It just feels like, oh, they play every year. Like they're just NFC powers. They've actually only played 3 times. But in the games that they played previously, the Rams were the old Rams offense. It was all 11 personnel. The Bucs played 88% nickel against the Rams in those 3 games. Well, now we're dealing with a different sort of Rams offense, and we're dealing with a Bucs defense that almost exclusively matches big bodies with big bodies. And when you can get them to play that way and play a ton of base, you can get after this team a little bit. Right now, the Bucs are bottom 10 in EPA per dropback out of base defense, but because they play it so much, they actually are bottom 5 in total passing EPA allowed out of base looks. The only teams below them are the Bengals, Dolphins, and Giants. And so now, if you can get them there because you're playing in a ton of 13 personnel, and even with Higbee out, he's only on the field for half of their 13 personnel snaps.
They are remarkably deep at tight end.
Yeah, the Davis Allen, Cody Parkinson, and
Terrence Ferguson.
Terrence Ferguson. You keep forgetting his name.
They can play that. I know. I'm insulting you with the Terrence Ferguson
me.
thing. And so I do think that this is a team that struggles to defend the pass out of those looks. This is a Rams team that destroys teams doing that. They didn't last week because the Seahawks played nickel to it the whole game, but I think this is a particularly difficult, like structural matchup for the Bucs right now, considering how the Rams are playing.
Yeah, this is brutal. This has always kind of been true of Todd Bowles. It's like if you get him into base, he's gonna match, and I think he likes to make the bet that like, okay, you can't play action every snap, so you're gonna run eventually, and we're gonna get you in 2nd and 11,
Exactly,
and then we can do our stuff. And like that's the bet that he makes. Whether or not that's right or wrong, I think is a different discussion, but when you get him in base, then he can't send some of those funky pressures that he likes to bring, and maybe bring a nickel off of here, or roll a safety down, or fire a linebacker, maybe stunt one of our ends. He can't do as much of that stuff when you're in just under center, like 13 personnel.
The blitz rates are very high when the Bucs are in base defense, but that's because
just
the 5
rushers
base guys are coming.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when you look at like 2nd and 3rd level blitzers in nickel this year, the combination of Sebastian Dennis and Lavonte David have 94 pass rush snaps in nickel. Out of base, it's 16.
Because if you bring him, then you're bringing 6, or you're dropping like Yaya Diaby into coverage.
And so the defense just becomes more predictable and static, which that's always the case when teams are playing base defense. But with the Bucs, it just feels more pronounced.
And can be fine if your corners are incredible. And like the Bucs corners and DBs are fine, but they're not that level where you can just be fine being like, we're just going to play one-on-one coverage and be okay.
It's such a productive way to use a linebacker that you don't fully trust to. Like,
just throw him.
Well, it's actually really funny because when I think about how the Rams offense is going to try to get after this team, there was a stretch in that game against the Seahawks last week where they tried to get Nick Emmanwori twice in coverage. It was like, and I want to say it was the first drive of the game down in the red zone where they ran a little play action pass out of 13 personnel. They tried to sneak Kyron into the left flat, and it was great coverage by Emmanwori. And then on the next play, they tried to get Kyron in the right flat, and Emmanwori tracks him down and makes the tackle short of the sticks. Well, now that player is one of the off-ball linebackers for the Bucs. And so the stuff, ironically, that the Rams were trying to do last week that doesn't work against the Seahawks, I actually think is the correct thing to try to do against this Bucs defense.
Yeah, Sean McVay's like, all right, just turn the sliders back up. Just let's go back to the way we were doing it before.
The other notable injury for the Bucs or the Rams, I think is worth mentioning, Rob Havenstein is also on IR. That's more of a like, that's just sad that he'd been playing hurt. And so like it was just time. If you think about, they lost their right tackle, and then your inclination is to think that's going to be a bad thing for the offense. It's probably not going to be a bad thing for the offense because he was struggling so much.
Warren McClendon has also played well. Like this isn't the first time that he's missed. And Warren McClendon through 3 games earlier in the year allowed 5 pressures, no sacks, and got flagged once, which just anecdotally, like when you see that news, it triggered like a warning bell for me where I was like, oh no, Rams line compromised. This is very bad.
I have the exact same process.
And then I like dove back in and looked at it closer and I was like, oh no, they'll be good. Damn. And then I was like, God damn, the Rams have been drafting really well the last few years where all of, like their tight ends, Warren McClendon, like at all levels of this thing, not just with the big picks, like they have found very useful players in their draft classes.
Well, now when they have the 5th overall pick next year, they can spend it on an offensive tackle if they need to.
So unfair.
All right, we're going to take our first quick break and then come back with one thing from a few of these Week 12 games. This episode of the Athletic Football Show is brought to you by our friends at Facebook. Every year around this time, there's that one night when everyone's back in town, Thanksgiving Eve. You swing by your old bar, see some familiar faces, maybe even reconnect with an old teammate you haven't talked to in years. That's what Facebook's all about, those little connections that end up meaning a lot. Maybe it's someone posting in your high school alumni group saying they're home for the holidays. Or maybe you find out about a local turkey trot where you dress up with family through a Facebook event. Even hopping on Marketplace to grab something to spice up your home ahead of Thanksgiving can spark a new friendship. This season, Facebook's reminding us that a little connection goes a long way. So if you're heading home, hop on Facebook, check out your group's events Marketplace, and see who you might reconnect with. Let's reconnect this holiday season with Facebook. We flipped the roles with this today. We have a Bears game and a Cowboys game in here. You did the Bears game and I did the Cowboys game. Your one thing that you're looking out for in the Steelers-Bears game this weekend, Dave.
It's like a home and home. We're removing our lifelong biases from it.
Like that the True Wests where Philip Seymour Hoffman and John C. Reilly switched off roles every single night. That's what we're doing. Every once in a while, it's just fun to do something a little bit different.
Robert's always breaking out like the arts and culture references.
I've got nothing here.
No idea what he's talking about, but I believe him. You can't do this matchup without touching on the Aaron Rodgers aspect. And I know he might not play. Do you not want to do this?
No, I do want to do this.
You don't want to revisit Aaron Rodgers at Soldier Field?
I'm just a little bit frightened about how this has gone conversationally over the last few days in the Bears world.
You think Bears fans are a little too confident that they're going to get right with Aaron Rodgers?
I think Bears fans are feeling themselves a little bit. The fact that there are Bears fans openly cheering for the idea of Aaron Rodgers playing in this game because they need to crush Aaron Rodgers along the path of whatever this season is becoming, I understand that. I was kind of getting there too. And then I had like 10 seconds of rational thought. And I was like, why are we hoping for this? This seems like a really dangerous thing to want.
The look on Aaron Rodgers' face when the Pittsburgh media asked him about playing in Chicago and playing at Soldier Field was delightful. Like, because he was so coy. He was such a shit about it because he was like, yeah, it's great city, great fan base, wonderful place to compete. And like the smirk on his face was priceless. And I was like, yeah, why wouldn't you feel that way?
It will be very rewarding if he plays and he plays poorly and the Bears win this game. But to act like I'm not at least a little bit afraid of the other possibility, I'd be lying to you. The Bears defense is still actively bad, even though Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon are likely going to play and I'm never going to die.
Robert is perpetually sitting on the fence between
it's so true.
Ultimate rational, like logical Bears fan and like doing the Super Bowl shuffle.
I can just like yelling at the two voices yelling at each other in my
head.
The
Jalen Johnson news, it's like every other time we bring it up, it's like picking the petals off of a flower. It's like one time you'll be like, we're back, we're going to win the Super Bowl. And then another time we bring up the Jalen Johnson news and you're like, can he play defensive tackle? It's like this oscillation every time we bring it up.
It's great.
You guys are getting a real up close and personal look at my inner dialogue that happens in my head all the time.
So the funny thing is we can't ignore the Rodgers aspect. We don't even know if he's going to play, but it's too juicy not to say anything about it. But the actually interesting part of this game is Bears offense, Steelers defense, and what that might look like. Because very quietly, I've been enjoying watching the Steelers defense the last few weeks. I mean, we talked about it a few weeks ago. Like they moved Jalen Ramsey to safety, and that sort of helped stabilize things. They traded for Kyle Duggar. But man, and Steelers-Bengals last week was the epitome of a game where there's just more going on a Sunday. And like by the fourth quarter of that game, when Kyle Duggar picked six Joe Flacco, I was in six other places. And so I went back and watched that game, and I was like, this is so cool. Joey Porter Jr. and James Pierre and these guys are just beating the shit out of the biggest, most physically dominant receiver duo in the NFL. And I know Joe Flacco is a piece of that, but the way they were bullying these guys, like 30 minutes into watching that game back, I was like, oh, I get why Jamar Chase spit on Jalen Ramsey. Not condoning that at all, but I get it. Like, it looked very frustrating. Like, they were playing so physical with these guys, beating them up. Obviously, we know the Steelers front can be good, not all the time, but some of the time. And so you mix those elements together, and I'm curious to see what it looks like between what we've seen from Caleb dealing with pressure, getting away from pressure. Let's be honest, it's been very fun at times, but the Bears passing attack has been incredibly inconsistent, drops, just bad timing, all sorts of stuff like that. They look like a young team. And so I think the Steelers are equipped to, what's the word I want to say? Just throw them off, frustrate them, fluster them. And so I think that could be a very, very fun matchup within this game.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And my biggest question is going to be the multiplicity that we've seen from the Steelers coverage-wise over the last couple of weeks. Is that a product of the teams that they're playing, or is that something they want to lean into a little bit more? Because I think if you give Ben Johnson a limited menu, his ability to like dial up beaters and create explosives, if you're going to give him like a static sort of defense, he can do that. But if you're going to start changing the picture on him a little bit more, I think that version of this game and that element of this game is what I'm most curious about.
And I worry about that a little bit for the Steelers because of the structure of the offense, where the Bears are willing to get under center more. They're willing to put multiple tight ends on the field. They run the ball pretty well for the most part, especially over the last month. And I think part of why the Steelers, especially last week, were able to go too high and do some of these rotations and stuff that they don't normally do, because the Bengals are going to be in shotgun on 90% of their plays, and you kind of know that they're not going to not going to run the ball, and so it's a little bit easier to be the team that has the front foot when you know what the other team is doing structurally.
The Bears offense right now, specifically, when you think about the ways they want to attack in the run game and the pass game, is specifically designed to attack the intermediate middle of the field. Mm-hmm. And that's true on even some of their non-play action concepts. Like, the best stuff they're doing right now is some of the ways they're attacking like the deep hook window where, and DJ Moore did this twice in the last game. And it really does, like, I'm enjoying watching the offense. This is like a weird little like tidbit, but they're running like what is supposed to look like a corner route, and then he'll bend it back inside, and it's almost like a corner stop, but he actually is taking it more further into the middle of the field than you would with a typical corner stop. And it's like a great little wrinkle off of what should be a corner route. And so when you think about that area specifically, your linebackers need to get depth in order to disrupt those sorts of throws. And we know that the Steelers linebackers in space, that is one area where you can kind of get after them a little bit.
The middle of the Steelers defense still concerns me between the linebackers. Ramsey's been good, but he definitely looks a tick slower than what you might remember Jalen Ramsey as being. So you can definitely do it, but I don't know, man. The physicality they played with against the Bengals, and like to take it to guys like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins it was very fun to watch.
Two things that worry me about this game. One, I know Alex Highsmith is banged up right now, but the idea of Nick Herbig even against Theo Benedict is something that would keep me up at night. And the other part of it is, if I'm the Steelers, I am running the ball 50 times in this game. I am running the ball until they stop me.
That's Arthur Smith's dream, to run the ball 50 times.
I'm running the ball until they stop me, because right now that Bears front, I don't think should scare anybody. And all three of their starting linebackers are currently not practicing. And so that is the other layer to this that right now I'm a little bit worried about. Let's get to our next one here. Panthers and Niners. Derrik, one thing you're looking for in Panthers-Niners.
So we've obviously got, for the Niners, Brock Purdy is back in the lineup now. He played last week against Arizona.
I don't know what that was. We've obviously got for the Niners, Brock Purdy.
Purdy, he's back.
Brock Purdy.
I was a little showy there in a way that I'm normally not. He was not good last week. I know the numbers look good, and he made a couple of nice open throws, but like, he just did not look like himself. Like, I thought he struggled. He couldn't get out of the pocket as much as you want. He didn't look as explosive. He didn't scramble very well. And then even a couple of the times that he was trying to get outside of the pocket, he tried very hard to roll out to his left and throw an interception down the field, like near the goal line, when earlier on that play, he had George Kittle, I think, on the right side, just like wide open on a speed out, doesn't throw it, he bails. And so I just thought he looked a little bit unsettled, didn't look as explosive. I think
that's a health thing.
I think it is a health thing.
Else?
I think he's just a little bit trying to work himself back into feeling good. And I think maybe with the running, he's maybe just not going to get there this year, which makes sense. You come off of some of the turf toe stuff, and he obviously played on it early in the season against the Jaguars, and probably he shouldn't have. And so I think it's affected him as a scrambler, but also, like, I think under pressure specifically, he struggled to drive the ball in a way that, he's already a guy who his arm is kind of on the line. And so if he's losing a little bit of juice, I think that can be a little bit of an issue. The reason I say all of that, it's probably not going to matter for the Niners this week because the Panthers cannot rush the passer and pressure him. And so I think this is a really good game for the Niners to like kind of just keep their season going and just like keep themselves alive. And this game shouldn't probably punish what on that side of the ball is probably the trickiest thing about them trying to work around right now.
What is the total in this game? Do we have any sense of that?
Well, we can figure it out.
I would wager it could be pretty high.
It's 49 and a half.
49 and a half. It's honestly, it's not even less than I thought it would be.
I thought we could get into the 50s there.
I guess I'm probably weighing the performance from the Panthers passing game from last week a little bit too heavily.
Yeah. I think that seems high to me because I could imagine this being a game with 100 combined carries between what the Panthers like to do
fair.
and obviously Christian McCaffrey.
The Niners are 7-point favorites in this game.
Does that surprise you?
I think they're much better at football team.
I guess you guys are right.
I'm rooting like hell for the Panthers. You and I agree. They're like a soft spot team for us. But I told Derrik this when we were talking before the show. Like, I would be flabbergasted to see the Panthers win this game. And that's not that's not fair. The Niners are beat up. Maybe it's just because we haven't gotten a lot of the Panthers in big moments like this. I joked about this during the week. I love this game being Monday Night Football because this is the epitome of like a 3:00 kickoff in San Francisco that gets buried by an NFC East game. Like this is a game that you typically don't see in a standalone window. I'm very excited about it, but I just think the Niners are a better team playing at home.
Yeah, you guys are probably right. I think there are two elements that are kind of feeding into this for me. One, I'm excited about the game. Yeah. And so the fact that it's that lopsided, it's just like, it's like, oh, that seems wrong.
This is shockingly appealing.
And that's the other part of it is that, like, if the Bucks lose and the Panthers win, the Panthers are in like real position in the NFC South. And so the fact that it's a game I'm looking forward to and it's a game that has real stakes, seeing that was just a little bit surprising. When you step back and think about it for more than 10 seconds, it does make sense. But just the initial thought, I was like, that's kind of weird.
And because I think, too, for a lot of the season, it's been like, oh, the Niners offense has been good in spite of XYZ guys missing. Well, it's like, well, now they have the quarterback back. Ricky Pearsall's back. Yeah. Juwan Jennings looks good. It's like they've got all the guys back now. And it's like they're the Niners we thought they were supposed to be.
The Cardinals were a borderline top 10 defense for like a good majority of the season, and they got destroyed by the Niners. And so I think I just anticipated there being a lot of points in this game. I guess it's probably on the Niners side, there are going to be a lot of points. The Panthers offense has had moments where they've really struggled for stretches of the season. So
this could be a lot like when Atlanta went to the Bay, however many weeks ago that was.
Yeah,
but
Sunday Night Football seems like 20 years ago now.
I'm weirdly so much more excited about this, though. I think I'm just excited to see the Panthers have a moment on a stage like this.
Then this game matters
with a chance to, and you know, I'm being dismissive of them, but they could absolutely be in control of the NFC South by the end of the week.
Our next one here, Eagles-Cowboys. My one thing from Eagles-Cowboys is kind of it's like 10 things, but we're consolidating into one central thought. I am so much more interested in this game than I was like 10 days ago. And I think that's coming from a few different directions. The Cowboys offense, when guys are out there, remains a very good unit. Like this offense has real juice to it. And I've loved watching them all season. Like we've been very open about the fact that this version of the offense with Clayton Adams and with Brian Schottenheimer, with George Pickens, like this team is fourth in offensive success rate this year. They are just ahead of the aforementioned Niners, the Packers, the Chiefs. This offense has been really good down to down. And now the Eagles defense is back into a place where this becomes like a real sort of heavyweight fight. I went back, I did a video this week about Jalen Phillips. It's going to be coming out on our YouTube channel a little bit later this weekend. And just went back and watched every single play that he's been on the field for the Eagles over those first two games. And how he has unlocked the rest of that defensive line. It's a combination of stuff, right? They get Jalen Phillips. They get Nolan Smith back. Nakobe Dean is now back in the lineup. And you watch everything that they're doing. Like when they made the trade for Jalen Phillips, our kind of abstract thought was what he will be able to do as a run defender on the edge compared to the other guys that they had to trot out there for most of this season with and without Za'Darius Smith is just so vastly different from a physical profile perspective. He's going to change the way that they can defend the run. Check. Like you saw it immediately against the Packers, and he's been able to do that. Their pass rush, this team was like bottom 5 in pressure rate when bringing 4 over the first half of the season.
And you saw Vic trying to blitz a little bit more.
He was blitzing more because he felt like
he
had to.
Yes.
And now, again, you get Nolan Smith back at the same time. There was a rep in the Packer game where And Jalen Phillips has been chipped at like a really high rate so far this season. So there's a rep in the Packer game where Jalen Phillips gets chipped. Jalen Carter, center slice or Jalen Carter, he gets double teamed. So now you've got Ojomo and Nolan Smith with one-on-ones on the other side. Those are matchup advantages. Those are good players. And they had another play where there was a twist between those two guys. They're doing a lot of simulated pressures now because they feel like they only have to bring 4. Jalen Phillips is a very capable dropper in those sorts of moments. The degree to which the defensive line is getting their hands on passes right now is like seriously disrupting other teams. When I watch it now, the fact that now Jalen Phillips gives them like 4 legitimate threats, it reminds me a little bit of watching the Steelers front at their best, where you have 4 guys across the front that are legitimate pass rushers. You know, obviously the Highsmith, Watt, Hayward, and then, you know, whatever you want to do, like Stephon Tuitt era of the Steelers.
Add a guy of your choosing.
And they're often pretty good, right? And so that's what the Steelers feel like. And then you combine the batted balls side of it. And that's like the best comparison I have in my head right now. And against this Cowboys defense or offense, that's a compelling matchup. And on the other side of the ball, now we have a Cowboys defense that is showing signs of life with after the Quinnen Williams thing. You're getting healthier in the secondary. How much the Logan Wilson thing matters, we'll see.
He had a good rep in the red zone against the Raiders. I'll give him that.
But now you have a Cowboys defense that looks like it's more than a speed bump. And you have a Philly offense that is starting to spiral. And if the Philly offense struggles against the Cowboys this weekend, and if they somehow lose this game, imagine the fever pitch that this discussion is going to reach in Philly. Like, it's already at kind of a crazy level. And
it's at an insane level.
I am so interested in this in a way I did not expect to be 2 weeks ago. That's where I land.
You know what I love, too, is, let's be brutally honest, the networks are going to put this game in the 3:30 slot no matter what. And that's like the whole NFC East. It's 4 of the top 10 media markets in the country. Like, this game's going to get the big billing no matter what. If it's going to be in that window, at least let it rock. And like, there's no bigger bummer than when a 3:30 Cowboys kickoff just sucks. And it's like, well, this is still here because it's the Cowboys and they're not going to flex them, but nobody wants to watch this. At least let it have some juice. And this game suddenly has a ton of juice. Like, I'm legitimately excited about it. And I definitely didn't think I'd feel that way as recently as, a week and a half ago.
I think the thing with the Jalen Phillips stuff, like, he's been incredible for them. Like, what he's added as a run defender, which gets them into better down and distances. And then when they can rush the passer, he's obviously better than the guys that they had there. All of that has been awesome. And then he can drop him off in coverage when he needs to. I feel bad for underrating the fact that Vic Fangio clearly hated his time in Miami. And a lot of the people
no
in
one has
Miami,
been ever less suited to live in Miami than Vic Fangio.
He hated being there. A lot of the players didn't seem to like him being there. And so the fact that in the middle of this season, Vic was like, I think there's one guy in Miami I still would kind of like to have on my team. The fact that he plucked Jalen Phillips, I think like speaks to how much Vic Fangio truly trusted that guy. And you're already seeing he pretty clearly had a plan in mind for him, and it's come together about as well as it could have.
You know what else is fun about this Eagles team is it's tempting to draw the parallels to 2023, where the coordinator hires weren't working out and everybody was wondering what the hell was wrong with the offense. And obviously that season went sideways, but Sean Desai got demoted in the middle of that and the defense was awful. This defense is amazing. And like, I'm not saying I want to see this, but like, I think the Eagles defense could carry them across the finish line, whereas that was just never going to happen in 2023.
Well, the question's going to be, and it's the reason we had the Eagles as like a no doubt about it team on at the table, is that we've seen the offense turn it around. I have some serious doubts about whether that can happen. And I think losing Lane Johnson for an extended period of time now, that plays into it. You lose the best right tackle in the NFL, arguably, Lions fans. And now your 6 offensive lineman stuff that you've been able to lean into a little bit earlier this season, that gets worse because Fred Johnson was your extra offensive lineman. Now he's your starting right tackle. So there's that part of it. And then when I watch the passing game right now, like the fact that the vertical element of it is really all they have and all they're trying to lean into, there's just nowhere else for them to turn. Like when you look at the amount of crossing routes a guy like Devontae Smith is running compared to this offense at its best, or even like the amount of like non-vertical outbreaking routes from a guy like A.J. Brown, There's just none of that. Like, unless they're throwing the ball deep outside the numbers, like, there is just nowhere that this passing game can tap into. And A.J. Brown just hasn't been that sort of force on those throws and on those plays this year. And so I don't know what the answer is right now, because it feels static, it feels one-dimensional, and it really does feel as dire as it's been for this team in any stretch.
I don't disagree. I think, and that's why I'm morbidly curious. I love the idea of Vic Fangio walking into the defensive meeting room on like a Wednesday, and like Jason Kelsey is giving interviews about what's wrong with the Eagles offense, and reporters are saying that the rift is getting bigger between Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown, and Deshaun Jackson is talking on podcasts, and Vic Fangio is just like, forget all that.
Vic Fangio's he doesn't understand what a podcast is.
Buckle your chin straps. We're going to get this thing done just like we've been doing for the last month and a half. They're such an impressive unit. And I think they're capable of doing that as long as Jalen can find Devontae Smith like once a game for an explosive play and get them like 7-10 points. I think they've got a shot.
Which I do have my like concerns about, because at least last year, I think part of why they were able to stabilize with the offense was when the passing offense was a little bit up and down and they didn't know what to do, you hand the ball off to Saquon Barkley 25 times a game, and eventually he will pop one. They can't do that, right? Especially if Lane Johnson's not going to play, you can't do that. I think them not having a, hey, let's slow down our breathing a little bit here type of thing that they can go to, I think that just, it puts a lot on Jalen Hurts, and it puts a lot on an offensive line that, again, I think is really, really good, but is less good this year, even with Lane Johnson. I think the interior was not as good as it has been in previous seasons, especially if Jurgens is potentially not going to play this week. Like, there's potential for a lot of like the bottom falling out here in a way that seems crazy for how many talented players they still have.
First one here. Cam Ward and the 1-9 Titans against the Seattle Seahawks. This is a different sort of Sicko Street. The next one is, what we typically do, a game between two very bad teams. This is a game between what has been the worst offense in the league and what is right now the best defense in the league. For a little bit of context, I have the Seahawks defense in every fantasy league, and the one I care about, they are projected to score the same amount of points as Emeka Egbuka.
They're gonna win you your matchups this week, I think is fair to say.
So the Sicko Street aspect of this is, how ugly does it get between the Seahawks and the Tennessee Titans offense?
It's probably going to be really bad. Like, the Seahawks are an incredible defense. Like, they're just going to have every single matchup advantage in this. The only thing I want to say about this, and it might be hard to figure this out on Sunday with how difficult it's going to be.
This is a tough time to put this on the record, by the way.
I don't care. I'm so confident in it. Cam Ward is a legitimately good quarterback today. Like, I think he's really good already. Not like top 10 or anything like that, but I think he's like he's
a quarterback you can build with.
He is absolutely a quarterback you can build with. And so this game might look ugly because Mike McDonald and his Seahawks team does that, but like, that dude's good.
You think Mike McDonald's got the advantage over Mike McCoy on Sunday?
Unfortunately.
Slightly.
All I wanted to say was there is light at the end of the tunnel for Cam Ward. But on Sunday, that light might be an oncoming train. I firmly believe in Cam Ward. I just want go watch the Texans game if you didn't watch it. It's maddening what happened to this guy. The Titans were called for 5 false starts and 2 holdings against Houston. 4 of those penalties came on 3rd down. You had the dropsy miscommunication issues with Mason Kinsey.
Oh my God.
By the way, Calvin Ridley got hurt on the first snap of that game. Van Jefferson, Mason Kinsey, and Alec Ayomanor. That's your receiver core. Like, this guy is screwed. And he still led them on a 95-yard scoring drive. He's a good quarterback. He's probably going to get his ass kicked by the Seahawks, and I feel bad about that. But I'm with Derrik. I just wanted to say it.
I'm looking forward to what Cam Ward can be over the course of his career. This week, I'm looking forward to like how ugly this can possibly get. And that's why it is included in this conversation.
The first time they played the Colts, they were down like 14-0 within 5 minutes of the game starting. And I could easily see that happening again here.
Let's get to the real Sicko Street game of the week. The Browns are playing the Raiders this week. There are a lot of different layers to this. What is the sickest street that you can walk down here when it comes to Browns Raiders?
I mean, I think the sickest street for a lot of reasons is Shedeur Sanders getting his first NFL start. And I'll be earnest here for a second, even though this is Sicko Street, but like what that looks like, he gets to be he took the reps with the starters.
Here we go.
I know that's the storyline everywhere. But this is an eminently gettable Raiders defense. You made the very good point. Like, Patrick Graham has done great work with them, and for what they have, I think they are a respectable unit. But I think it's fair to say, like, if Shedeur Sanders can't show something resembling effective quarterback play against these guys, what is your hope for what that's going to look like moving forward?
I don't know. This is still a bad Browns offensive infrastructure. And listen, not like a Shedeur Sanders.
It's
like,
got to look better than
or,
it did getting thrown in against Baltimore, though, right?
Yeah, considering that's like one of the worst extended quarterback stretches that I've seen, like watching the NFL over the last 5 years, it better be better than that. Yes.
I know the bar is not very high, but for a variety of reasons. A, the profile, be honest, the conversation that Shedeur drives, like, there are going to be so many eyeballs on this, and how good or how bad or how sicko it looks is going to be one of the prevalent talking points of coming out of week 12. For me, I'm just as interested in Myles Garrett and what he might do against this Vegas offensive line. Like, after watching what the Cowboys did, and that is not even with Quinnen Williams, that is not the most devastating pass rush in the NFL by any stretch. And now you add Myles Garrett to this. Myles Garrett was sitting, like, 3 weeks ago, he was sitting on a very normal 5 sacks in 7 games. Like, that sounds about right. Like, you're never playing with the lead. Good player. You just don't
Finished with a dozen.
Yeah.
Nice season for Myles Garrett.
Always has like 13 somehow. Yeah.
He's got 15 now with 7 games to play. And this is a situation where even if he, let's say he gets like 2, now you're talking about needing 5.5 to tie or break the single season sack record over your last 6 games. Like, if he can make some hay here in a situation where he could, then the single season sack record comes into play
On Sunday.
It could. That's the funny part. Like, it's if he can do 4 or 5 sacks against Baltimore or against New England, then he could get, I don't know if he could get to 7 sacks, but like, he could.
I was kidding, just to be clear.
If anyone in the league can do it, it's against this offensive line and this quarterback.
I just love the idea of Max Crosby and Myles Garrett just kind of staring across the sidelines at each other, being like, "Yeah, you and I, like, we're going through the same thing right now, buddy."
It's incentives day here on Sicko Street.
We had a take tribunal that we wanted to dig into this week that came about as we were discussing the things we wanted to hit on the Week 12 preview. This is all you, buddy. What do you need to get off your chest this week?
We should not talk about the Vikings anymore because I'm done talking about JJ McCarthy because there's nothing new to say. He's the worst starting quarterback in the league, and it looks the same just about every week. And so until something changes, I'm putting an embargo on Vikings offense talk.
We can't do that.
Why?
You can't put an embargo on one of the most divisive and interesting teams in the league right now. Not interesting in a good way, but still interesting.
But if it looks, is it divisive though if the conversation is the same and there's no one on the other side?
Yes.
Other than like people with like skull in their Twitter bio.
This team inspired the biggest argument that the three of us have had on the show when we talked in August about whether or not they deserved a seat at the championship table.
I want to be clear about this. It was whether them or the Texans deserve the seat.
I still
feel okay about that.
Vindication, buddy. Like, as bad as the Texans have been, I feel great about that decision. But that's how highly the Vikings were thought of. Best supporting cast in the NFL, Kevin O'Connell and what he can do as a quarterback developer. This was more so than just an interesting team with a young quarterback. I have been viewing the Vikings this entire time as a thought experiment, because it's not every year that you are willing to move on from an established Pro Bowl level starter at quarterback. And I know the end for Sam Darnold in Minnesota was ugly, but he did more than enough that a lot of teams would have caved to the obvious decision. I mean, the Giants with Daniel Jones is a great example. More often than not, you pay that guy. And the Vikings.
But how many times do you have a first-round quarterback in the building when that guy has that season? Very, very, very rarely. I don't want to compare the Daniel Jones choice to what happened to the Vikings. Those are very different things.
I still think a lot of teams would have found a way to hold on to the quarterback that just led them to 14
Potentially,
points.
yes.
And I'm not even necessarily criticizing the Vikings for what they did, because I understand the logic of it. It's more of the point of Like, this is not a team that was supposed to be bad, and they have a young quarterback like the Titans with Cam Ward, where it's like, that's a tough break, man. I'm going to stick you in the corner and watch some of your tape in the offseason.
I'd rather talk about the Titans every week than this offense.
This team, they are too interesting, and the range of outcomes is too diverse to just will them away.
But it's not anymore. He's the same guy every week.
It's not anymore. They have a 5% chance to make the playoffs. So the range of outcomes is not that diverse. They're going to not be a playoff team. And I feel like all the things that you're saying about this is a thought experiment, and the most interesting part of this being what the Vikings are going to have to do at the end of this, we can do that on December 31st. We don't have to live and die with this every single week. And I think my perspective on this has been warped because I have had to talk about this offense 2 weeks in a row on The Hangover. I've watched every single snap that JJ McCarthy has taken the last 2 weeks, and I've had to sit in it, and I no longer need to be following this beat by beat. If you can stand there and make that argument, if we do the Vikings on The Hangover again, you have to do it.
It is nice to just watch on Sunday and then just walk out of here just like, oh, I'll worry about JJ later in the week. That is tough. Do you want to do Building the Beast?
Honestly, if we land on the Vikings again, I think I might be down.
Watching Fernando Mendoza and Ty Simpson is a hell of a lot more fun than what the Vikings have going on right now.
It is a fascinating discussion. I just think that and not even the vacillations, because it's kind of been the same conversation.
He
over the
has
last
3
2 weeks.
good throws a week, and then otherwise he looks.
But to me,
tough.
It's the obsession with every single moment. We've talked about this a lot this year, and I think that this has become so obvious when you just look about the conversations that are happening around the league. Like, every time a young quarterback breathes, it is the most important thing that has ever happened to that fan base. And I feel like it's making us lose our collective minds. And I think trying to distance ourselves from that a tiny bit with a couple of these guys can only be a good thing. I'm not saying we don't talk about it for the rest of the year, but until something meaningful changes, do we have to keep doing it?
I'm going to steal your line from you, because when we previewed, it was either Vikings Bears or Vikings Ravens. You made the very astute point. He beat the Lions. The JJ McCarthy Vikings.
The Vikings beat the Lions.
He's the quarterback.
Yeah.
And that's my whole point. They are a good enough team to do some weird shit like that, even with JJ McCarthy doing what he's doing.
But
that doesn't make him any good.
This season is gone.
The
season is over.
The season might be gone. But do you mean to tell me that with all the frustrating shit that they do, that the Green Bay Packers couldn't muck about and lose to this team?
That's more. We can talk about that, but let's talk about the Packers when we're having that conversation.
JJ could play terribly in the way that he has for all of the other games, and they win that game. But then that tells me nothing new about JJ McCarthy. That's my point. If he plays well over the next 2 weeks, we'll put him back on the table. I'll start talking about JJ McCarthy. But if it looks the same way that it has for 5 of his starts, like I don't care anymore.
I don't care about this as much as he does. And I actually think it's going to be funny to make him talk about JJ McCarthy over the next 6 weeks.
Maybe
so
I
agree with you.
I think I just like making Derrik talk about bad football because it like offends him on a personal level, whereas I kind of get a thrill out of it.
See, I'm going to leave on my plane tomorrow, and you guys, as punishment, are going to make me talk about JJ McCarthy next week for having left.
I will zoom in for a Vikings hangover segment if need be.
That actually is a good punishment for you.
Just bring him in just for Vikings offense.
Yeah, I can handle that.
Let's talk about what we want to know by the end of the Week 12 slate. Dave, what do you got for me?
I feel insane asking this question, but is Joe Burrow going to play football this
weekend? It sure
weekend?
seems like it.
Zach Taylor wants it to happen. I'm telling you that right now. Just typically, the head coach is the first one to shut this sort of speculation down, and Zach Taylor's just like, he could. How did this happen? Like early December was the target date for Joe Burrow. And earlier this week, it was like, or last week, excuse me, it was like, oh, he's limited. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? And then on Wednesday of this week, he's full at practice. I can't believe how quickly this escalated.
Both good and bad, Joe Burrow is an insane person. Like, to be one of those quarterbacks, you kind of have to be. And there's clearly a level of this of like, he wants to be out there, even if playoff chances are done, all that stuff. Like, he clearly wants to go out there and play ball, which, like, I respect. I'm just like, at this point for the Bengals, like, this just doesn't change anything that really to me.
My first, like, knee-jerk reaction to something like this is, like, what does this benefit? Like, who does this possibly benefit? But then I think you actually take a step back and think about it for a second. And first of all, I'm sure he wants to play.
Oh, he clearly, yeah. He's
And
just that kind of guy.
If you're being really cynical about this, I think the first place your mind can go is, well, of course Zach Taylor wants him to play. They need to like save Zach Taylor's job and save his season. I would be willing to bet a lot that thought has not consciously crossed Zach Taylor's mind. I think there is an obligation and urgency in an NFL building to do everything you can to win every single game just because that's the way that guys are wired. That's the way that they operate. I also think that just from a practical benefit perspective, him being able to, it's not week 18. There's still like a third of the season left. When guys sit out for an entire year, it's a bad thing to do. We've seen that like really hinder players and like the overall arc of their careers. And so if he's healthy enough to play, he suffers a devastating injury and misses the rest of the season. That's awful. But then you have an entire offseason to rehab that injury. And so I think it's very easy to say, just put him on ice. Who gives a shit about this? I feel like that's a lot harder to actually see through for a bunch of different reasons.
I think this is a picture-perfect example of how simple the idea of waiting till next year or tanking. Obviously, like the Bengals weren't intending to tank because they had Joe Burrow.
Not trying to win. Not trying to do everything you can to win.
It's easy to say that from 10,000 feet. And let me just say from experience, the building of an NFL team that is having the season the Bengals are having is an abysmal place to be. It permeates every aspect of life in that building, from from payroll to the locker room. And to give to punt on a situation like this, and let's be very clear, the Bengals would have to win out to even have a shot at the playoffs. You're not doing this realistically for a chance at the playoffs. You're doing it as a good faith effort to your locker room and your building that you are trying to win football games. And we were joking about it before the show. Look at the ride Jamar Chase has been on this season between Jake Browning and what happened with Jalen Ramsey last week. And imagine 7 more weeks of this type of football and the effect that it could have, let alone stuff like, forget Zach Taylor's job and livelihood, the people 10 rungs below him that need the Bengals to be a viable product to not have to relocate their kids. All that stuff comes into play here. And on top of that, Joe Burrow makes $50 whatever million a year. Like, if he's healthy and he wants to do it, I absolutely think you should do it. And that's more than just me being excited to watch him. Like, that's from a practical standpoint.
Do we worry about that at all, though? Like, let's say he's rushing himself back a little bit.
And he's not fully healthy.
Hurt.
I think that
he's the guy who's not healthy a lot.
If he is not actually healthy enough to play, and he's at like 75%, then I 100% disagree with this timeline. If he is 100% healthy and can protect himself, is in a position to like be the best version of himself out there, I have less of a problem with it.
I agree with that.
We have to talk about this before we leave.
Oh no.
Calvin Watkins, who covers the Cowboys.
What's up, Calvin?
CeeDee Lamb is doing his media availability right now. CeeDee Lamb said he and George Pickens missed curfew before the game at Las Vegas. The two were having dinner and a few drinks at Red Rock Casino. Lamb denied he was throwing up at the casino. He said it's a disrespect to even suggest that. He knows how to hold his liquor.
That's the defense?
How about them Cowboys, baby?
You know what? I'm 100% in. Bring back the boys will be boys era. I want that. This is the Cowboys that I want.
I think you speak for the entire fan base when you say that.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing. Sorry, we had to mention that. Talking about, again, how bad it can get down the stretch for some of these teams and the misery that comes along with that. What do I want to know in week 12, and this will extend for the rest of the year, how bad does it get for the Falcons? Like, truly, how ugly is this going to be? From an on-field product perspective, from a jobs of people in the organization perspective, and again, there is no worse feeling in the NFL, or as a sports fan, when you are in the middle of a lost season and you do not have the pick that is supposed to be the reward for that lost season. It is the ultimate just twist of the knife. And that is exactly the reality that the Falcons are sitting in right now.
They're going on the road to play their biggest rival, who everybody knew was going to be the worst team in the league heading into this season. And I don't think they're favored to win. They are not.
The Saints are 1.5 point favorites.
They are not favored to beat the Saints, who were the butt of every joke in the league heading into the year.
That says a lot about where we're at with Kirk Cousins. With completely fair, given what he's done over the last handful of times that he's been out there, has been terrible. This, I know we talked about with on The Hangover, the Michael Penix like injury and all that stuff, and like where are we at with like cleaning out the coaching staff and front office and stuff, I think I was pretty willing to like the front office. We should probably go. Coaching staff, we don't know, but like if it truly falls apart over the next 6 weeks, like it would probably be hard to justify like not just clearing everything out.
This kind of relates to the Bengals conversation. Coaches get fired often, and front office executives as well, because I'm reminded of the John Robinson moment with the Titans. People get fired because owners are embarrassed. People get fired because the product on the field is making the owner, it's making his skin crawl when he has to watch it. That's one of the arguments, cynical or not, for Joe Burrow playing for the rest of the season for the Bengals. We are potentially living out that sort of reality for the Falcons. And I am at least a little bit morbidly curious about the depths that this thing will reach both this week and over the rest of the season. Derrik, what do you want to know coming out of week 12?
I have invested over the last couple of shows that we've done more Jaguars optimism than I should. And I know I do this. Then is justified as well. But they have not really strung together like two good offensive performances the entire year. That's pretty important to do. And so this week, like, if they can do it based on what they did last week and then maybe string together a good performance here against the Cardinals, that would at least give me like 2% more faith that they can like actually steal the division from the Colts.
When did you jump off? Because
I've never really jumped off. I think I was just a little bit more of a quiet passenger for a minute, but I've been on the ride the whole time.
That's incredible considering. So they beat the Chiefs in that game. Then there was the Trevor sacked 10 million times by the Seahawks. They get blown out in London by the Rams. They beat the Raiders on a 2-point conversion at the end, blow that lead to the Texans. And then they finally looked good last week against the Chargers. You, on some level, believed that entire time.
For some reason, yeah.
It's incredible.
For some reason, yes.
And if I'm with you, man. It would mean a lot to me if they could do it twice in a row. I don't have a ton of confidence, but
I wish I could believe in something to the degree
as
that you
fervently
believe
as I do.
in Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars. It speaks to like a purity of your soul that I just have lost a long time ago. All right. That is all we've got for week 12. Looking forward to this one. This is going to be our first recap show, not from the studio. Just got to give you guys a heads up. Obviously, we're entering the holiday portion of the season. I am on my way to Florida for Thanksgiving. Derrik is on his way home, but we're still coming your guys' way on Sunday. Same time, same place when it comes to the YouTube channel. That's where you can check it out. Encourage you guys to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and click that subscribe button. We're doing a ton more YouTube-specific stuff this year. New like bespoke videos that we've not been doing in the past. Derrik has another one this week, I believe, about the Rams defense, correct? I have one coming out about Jalen Phillips and the impact he's had about the Eagles. So we're doing multiple of those every single week. The recap shows that we're doing, including tonight's show. If you are listening to this on Friday, it's going to be available in your YouTube feed, our recap of Texans Bills. We've got graphics, highlights, just way more stuff when it comes to the recap shows on video that I would encourage you guys to check out. If you like the other content that we're doing, I assume that you will like kind of the new and improved versions of the video stuff that we're putting out there. So like, subscribe, do all of that fun stuff. We will be back on Sunday. For now, that's all we got. Appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you very soon. Thanks for watching. Follow The Athletic Football Show wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube.